What's going on, guys? Been a while since I've done any total gym video here on the channel, and a lot of you guys have been asking me if I'm still even using this thing, or if I am, how am I using this thing considering I got all this other equipment sitting behind me that sometimes pushes this out. So I'm going to address that question in a topic that I don't think I've really focused in on that really is one of the big selling points about this machine, and I'll give you guys some specific exercises, how I would take advantage of this, but basically talking about how a total gym can actually be a very great recovery, or I should say active recovery tool to get over things like muscle joint soreness or stiffness from other types of exercise programs or modalities. And then in a similar way, how this could be maybe incorporated in part of a traditional deload program that maybe people are following with traditional strength training, where they prescribe certain periods of their training where they're dropping down the intensity and or volume to recover from really hard training sessions that are gradually acclimating up to a certain period of time. And that couldn't just be maybe just from following an actual program. It could just be you're getting kind of stale, you're getting kind of burnt out, and so you want something that is a lower form of exercise that you can take advantage of. And that's honestly where this machine does kind of shine. Of course, I've shown the channel you can load this thing up. People have actually talked to me before in the past that I basically did a 3-year deload program when I was following this machine as my sole form of resistance training, which is definitely fair enough because I did find that I could do a lot more frequency, a lot more repetitions. In some ways I kind of had to kind of get over and kind of get the same benefits out of traditional free weights using this machine. But with that being said, now I'm really taking advantage of coming back to this, or plan to coming back to this with some new programs I've been incorporating, and maybe I'll share with you guys in a future video, but also throughout the greater part of this year doing things like high intensity training where I was very stiff, very sore, and I'll share how something like this can help get over that joint soreness and stiffness. So that's what I get into, guys, in the video. Definitely share your comments down below. I know this is a topic a lot of you guys have written to me before that you do take advantage of this, say with things of like coming off periods of bodybuilding or powerlifting to kind of help the joints kind of heal a little bit or just do something a little bit different. Shameless plug as always though, guys, I do have a special exclusive discount codes with Total Gym. If you guys are curious, I'll link it down below in the description box, but as always, you can find these things pretty cheap or used also if you want to look that route too. All right, first talking about active recovery first. It is what it sounds like, and it sounds counterintuitive to most people, especially say if you're following something that is, and I'm using the example because it is fresh in my head, I already alluded to it, doing things like high intensity training. I've been dabbling with that for the better part of this year, where I was only really working out 2 times a week for like 30 to 45 minutes. It doesn't seem like a lot of work, but those workouts did pretty much thrash me the whole entire week, where I did not want to do anything. I was zapped, but on top of that, I was very sore and very stiff. So much so my wife always questions, why am I doing these workouts? I said, well, it's saving time. And while it saved time, I felt like garbage for like 2 or 3 days after. However, the caveat was I knew in my head if I would have done some sort of active recovery and moving my body a little more, I probably would have reduced that soreness. So one part of that was laziness. The other part of that was just sake of time. And that's why I actually was taking advantage of those workouts. But there's always been a train of thought, and this is well established, that if you actually get out and do some movement, you can actually clear up some of the inflammation, get some blood flow to the muscles that for the most part can reduce or greater alleviate some of that muscle soreness. So people might traditionally think of things as, say, yoga, or they even like maybe foam rolling or doing some stretching. Specifically, if you talk about yoga, but even some bodyweight calisthenics, just simply getting the blood going, moving a little bit more, but even specifically in those target areas. So instead of just saying going out for a walk or doing something like that, if your chest is sore, your legs are sore, maybe doing some things like light push-ups, light barbell presses, light dumbbell presses, even doing things like bodyweight squats, can actually help alleviate that soreness and stiffness much more so than if you did absolutely nothing. So why a total gym compared to say maybe dumbbells, free weights, or some calisthenics might be maybe an ideal option for you guys. Of course, you can use pretty much anything to get some active recovery. Something like this, you're already kind of laying on your back or your stomach, you're kind of rocking up and down, there's this rhythmic kind of nature to it. Like all forms of exercise in general, more or less, there is some lymphatic system kind of activation here, so you're getting the blood flowing in a nice kind of cyclical way. You can work your whole entire body, you can chain things together. You're not going to be putting things and adjusting weights or putting weights on otherwise you necessarily want to. And you can just sit in this thing and just start going and chaining exercises together. The other great thing about this, many people write in, this is why they kind of take up a total gym, is because it actually actively increases range of motion in a very forgiving way. So people often write to me and saying they feel like they're kind of getting lengthened or stretched while they're still doing some resistance training. And there's kind of some truth to that, because you can actually get in some deep ranges of motions that otherwise would cause you some discomfort if you're using things like dumbbells or free weights. I think you guys get the idea though, but I will give you guys some examples of some things I would do on some active recovery after we talk about the deload here in a second. So speaking of deload, this is a term I honestly don't really use that term that much. I kind of more so if I'm feeling kind of sore or beat up, I'll take a couple days off or lower the volume and or intensity. Of course, I have followed programs in the past, specifically powerlifting programs or strength programs that incorporate deloads, and I do those. I've never taken a full week off, but I will definitely do things where I'll pump the brakes and lower the intensity when I used to those things in the past. Some people I know don't even like the term deload because they say it's kind of artificial, that if you are, feeling that banged up, maybe just take more rest days or do something that is a little bit different. But regardless, the point is, I think none of us would disagree to the fact that if you're getting up to the point where you're getting kind of beat up progressively, adding weight, adding some maybe volume and or intensity or tension, your body needs some time to kind of breathe, and that's what the purpose is of a deload week. And so if it isn't too obvious, kind of following the lines of active recovery, everything I just said there applies here as well. But traditionally in deload, while there's all different schools of thoughts on how to do it, and there's a whole rabbit hole you guys could go down into what's superior. Is it lower frequency, lower volume, and higher intensity, or is it dropping the intensity and then raising the frequency a little bit, or is it just dropping everything? I think something like this is kind of perfect, because even if you were just doing, say, a week's worth of, say, a deload time, or even maybe 2 weeks of that, something like this, you broke this thing out, you just stripped all the, free weights, exercises out of your program, anything that's kind of heavy, kind of more a little hard and aggressive, say on the joints, tendons, ligaments. This thing would be a kind of a valuable good deload. Now you gotta be careful in the sense that you can always overdo it, and that's kind of the draw with this thing. You start going through the motions, your blood does start pumping, and you feel like you can be on this thing forever, and before you know it, you turn this 20-minute workout into a 45 or an hour workout. But I will say, even if you did do that, odds are this will still be a lot more forgiving on your joints than, say, a 30 or 45-minute powerlifting session. So I will just say that. Got to get the cobwebs off the squat stand. Now, getting into some of the exercises that I would personally do if I was doing this, say, for an active recovery or deload, I pretty much would stick to a few key things. Predominantly, I would just do some basic pushing, basic pulling. I would do some leg stuff. It could be some, jump squats, a basic double leg stuff or single leg stuff, and then possibly some single joint arms and or shoulders. And I'll get to maybe why I wouldn't do too much of those, even though those are smaller body parts. But just doing something like this, first off with chest presses, kind of self-explanatory, but the point is, yeah, you're getting the range of motion going. I can control this with my legs. That's always kind of huge. The other thing I like about this is if you wanted to, you can actually turn this into a whole stretching session along with some kind of assisted little flies. So just stuff like this, again, getting a stretch and then going into a press. Same thing I could have done with like a chest press too, or just kind of take some time doing some assisted or some that you're kind of hanging. Of course, you could adjust the incline setting, but I would just kind of leave it where it's at. From this position, still facing away from the tower, do some stretches here, some face up or supine pullovers. Again, just feel good. That would just be a nice stretch in itself. I would be avoiding things like tricep extensions. These are smaller body parts. If you're doing this for a longer period of time, then I would add some triceps and biceps. I just feel like for most people, for this in the total gym can actually get kind of difficult, especially if you're at a certain incline level. You could even do some little minor isometric holds, like this kind of iron cross type of little T type deal here. Turning around this way, I'll first show you kind of face down. I actually love these pullovers, these lateral pullovers or just traditional pullovers on a total gym like this. Again, you got a nice stretch in your lats and a nice passive range of motion. And again, I can use the squat stand, or I can put my feet in the ground, and I could assist myself a little bit if I want to for certain range of motions. But going out to the side feels good, or just come in straight down this way. And then coming up, we are in this new Evolve model that has a bunch of different settings. Again, you could do some bicep curls. I just feel like, and I feel that now, because I had a previous workout earlier, my biceps are still kind of sore. I would kind of skip that. I would just go to the bigger multi-joint exercises, but at a lower intensity. So I could just do simply some rows, some pulls. So again, getting kind of more mid-back. Again, pretty easy. I could go single arm if I want to here as well. And then I would do this at probably a lower incline setting, but something else I think that's just good for shoulders, just some lateral raise stuff. I can put some chain extensions on here. That's what I ideally I would do. But you can go frontal raises, some lateral raises, just nice and easy. And then also here, I would actually do this if I had more, put the chains on for more extension, but I could do double press, where I'm just doing single, so I'm not hitting the top of the tower. But this would be a great kind of range of motion, active recovery stuff with your shoulders. So I just raised it up a little bit for legs, this is not going to be that hard at all. But again, just basic squat, nothing really to say here. But what I like about this is if you have issues with hip or knees, you can really get that low range of motion. You can even, again, do some kind of passive stretches here. But I can get a really good deep squat that is pretty much minimal to absolutely no impact on my legs. Obviously back as well. I can come up here, sitting upright, doing some active range of motion guided presses here. Again, I can hold a stretch in between some sets. You can always go single leg too. Again, I can hold various stretches here. This actually feels really good. And because it is so low impact, you could do some more explosive stuff as well that is still very low impact. I have people write to me that have like really bad knees and hips and can still do stuff like this, no problem. That's pretty much my plan, more or less, of how I'm gonna be using this machine in the future, are for those things, say like active recovery, or actually literally kind of programming in maybe a whole week or even week and a half, 2 weeks of just using this machine. Since I had this channel and I featured this machine, that's probably one of the most common ways I've seen people kind of write into me, in that either if they're not using it consistently, they will say they'll actually just take this thing out from time to time, a week, a couple weeks, maybe a month, and just stick to this machine for a while to kind of just pump the brakes back, just make things kind of more simplified. Again, you can have some fun on here too. Honestly, this actually is a very good, just fun warm-up to actually get going on it. Got to be careful though, again, like I said, if you're going to treat this for active recovery or deload, not to overdo it. But with that being said, guys, hopefully this was informative. You guys got any questions, comments, feedback about this, let me know, and I'll see you on the next video.